Hello everybody, this is Howard the Teaser King coming to you with some more conferences for 2016 for the upcoming football season. I'm going to talk about the money conferences, Conference USA and the Sun Belt. Why are these money conferences? Because they're not the popular teams. So the spread on Alabama should be -7, goes to -12. The spread on Notre Dame should be -3, is -10. Michigan, Ohio State, where the spread should be 4 or 5 or 6, is 12, 13, 14. So they all get blown out of proportion because the line is based on popularity. Who wants, everybody's going to bet on Notre Dame, so they jack the spread up. In the West, in Vegas, everybody bets on USC, so they jack the spread up, factoring in that they're going to be there. So therefore, these are where you make your money, and you got to spot your team. So let's start with Conference USA. Again, going off of the Lindy's guide of ranking the teams, pretty much based on the team, not because of the road teams or the home teams, or where we think they'll finish based on the schedule. So start off with Western Kentucky. Brian Brahms, the coach, used to be the Louisville quarterback, knows the Petrino offense, and Brian Doherty ran it to perfection last year. They averaged 44 and 26 for a 70. I'm going to give you the averages and returning starters and quarterbacks, and I'll tell you teams are over and under. So if we look at it, it's a new quarterback, and I'm sure he's been in the system. He'll do very well. 5 returning starters on offense, 4 on defense. There will be explosive offense like last year, and a young defense is makings for an over. Definitely an over team. Like I said, the average was 44 points on a game, scoring and giving up 26. I'm not going to say that for each one, but I'll tell you 44 points is what they average. And they played LSU, and they still averaged 44. So you like them as an over. You like them against weak defenses. They'll score a lot. If they play Temple, you got to be careful because Temple has a great defense. So you got to watch them against the strong defensive teams. Southern Miss, another returning quarterback's very good. 6 returning starters on offense and defense, a balanced offense, strong secondary, definitely an over team. They averaged 40 and 25 last year. They do have a new coach. Usually they leave everything alone there. When they come in, if it's successful, they won't change it much. Middle Tennessee State. Returning quarterback, very good. Very strong offense. 6 and 5 returning. Definitely an over team. They average 34 in offense and 26 on defense for a 60. But this is a team that, if you just said Middle Tennessee, I bet you 5 people in the country know they're going to be an over team and have a really good quarterback and a really strong offense. That's why you pay me the big bucks, because I tell you that stuff. And that wins a lot of money. When Middle Tennessee plays Western Kentucky and the over-under 62, and we lock over and they score 90 in the game, and you go, wow, how did he pick that? Well, that's how I pick it, because I know now you got to watch for the injuries, but at this point, they'll be a very explosive offense, and they're ranked 3rd in the conference, so they should be a pretty good team. Marshall, returning quarterback, he's a sophomore. Basically, they have 5 and 4 returning. Balanced offense, good pass rush, young team, 31 and 17 last year for a 48, which shows you they're a very good defensive team. But they'll have a good pass rush. So against some of these passing, they'll blitz off the ends and interrupt the quarterback. So you play running teams against this team. The passing teams, they could give a little bit of a problem too, but basically they're an under team. Louisiana Tech, new quarterback, I have no idea. Keep an eye on them. 6 returning offense, 3 returning defense. Very weak offense this year. Solid but young defense. New quarterback and a new running back. They lost some really good stars last year. Probably an over team. They were 37 and 27 last year, so they scored about 40 a game. But they lost Driscoll and they lost their running back, and you got to be careful with them. See their identity at this point. Probably an over when they play the more explosive teams out of the conference. If they played like a Baylor or somebody of that caliber, I would definitely take the game over. Florida International, decent quarterback, 9 offense and 5 defense back, strong offensive line, young on defense, good offense, weak defense. You gotta love Florida International. You gotta bet against them when they play Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, any of these dominant offensive teams. Out of conference, you have a good offense playing a weak defense. If they were to play Indiana, and I think that's the first game, I think that's week 1's game. So we might have a lock right here, right on live TV here. Indy plays Florida International. How about that? I don't have an over-under on that. Maybe that just stuck in my subconscious, but that's exactly what you want. Indy will score a ton of points, and they run that spread offense very well. Florida International, good offense and no defense. Last year they were 25 offense and 30 defense. So Indy will score a ton. Florida International can score. They do have their quarterback back and their own offensive line with a very young, weak defense. It's beautiful. So that could be a lock depending on what the over-under is. Now, if it's in the 55-60 range, it's a lock. If they make it 70, and I don't think they'll make it 70 here. They make Baylor 70, Oregon 70. This game will probably be a high 50s, and that will definitely be an over, and especially in a teaser where you can, let's say it's 58, you drop it to 52. I mean, there's no way they're not going to get over 52. So there you go, right away, week 1. Florida Atlantic, new quarterback, 8-8 back on offense and defense. Balanced offense, a good running back, so they're a good running team. They'll play Marshall okay. They play close games. They're more of an under. They average 22 and 28. Now you got to understand, in this league, to only average 22, you're running the ball and playing defense, because you should be able to average in the 30s against this type of competition. Rice, new quarterback, 7 offense, 8 defense back. Strong offense going to an up-tempo, so they'll score a lot. Young defense, very weak. Again, a perfect over team, a perfect team that'll get killed. They average 26 on offense and 36 on defense, so they are a terribly defensive team, but they'll score. So again, against Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, you bet the game over. They can't stop it. If it's a 20-point spread, you bet Western Kentucky and Southern Miss and those teams, because they'll put up a big number on them, and they'll score all day on them. So that's what you're looking for. UTEP, new quarterback, 7-6 returning starters. Strong offensive line, strong running attack, weak versus the pass. I'm not sure if they're an over or under. They average 20 offense and 33 on defense. So you can see they don't score a lot, although they're trying to run the ball. But very weak against the passing team. So when they play the good passing teams, you pound the passing team against them. If the over-under is not too bad, well, they're not really. They'll give up a lot of points, but they don't score a lot, so they're better to just bet against. They're just a weak team. Old Dominion, returning quarterback, 9-8, so they got a lot of players back. Weak offensive line. They run a spread, no huddle this year, so look for them to tire out their own defense, and maybe they'll score. I don't know. The quarterback is back, but he's not very good. Very strong pass rush, but a very weak defense overall. They give up a lot of sacks. I don't know, again, if they're an over or under. They don't score. They average 24 and 35, so they give up a lot, and the defense will still be weak. Texas San Antonio, the Roadrunners. Got to love the Roadrunners. Quarterback is returning, but he's not very good. 7-5 return offensive defense. Johnson, quarterback, I have a note on him. He's a pretty good quarterback, I guess. If they play him, I think he's either injured or a transfer, but he's the better quarterback. So watch the box score for Johnson in there. If Strum's the quarterback, he's not very good, but Johnson is. Very weak defense. Again, they only scored 22 and gave up 33. So again, these teams are so weak and they give up points that even though they don't score a lot, they're pretty much overs. If the over-under's in the 50s, you just take all these, they're just going to give up a ton of points. Problem is they don't score that much, so therefore it's hard. They're weak, but you're not getting a lot. So you got to rely when Western Kentucky plays them that they put up all the points for the over, but then they're laying 25, you just bet Western Kentucky because they'll score a lot, and these other teams just can't score. They'll give up a ton. Next game is Charlotte, a new quarterback, but he's pretty good. 8-7 returning. The quarterback's from Miami, and they might have a good offense. They have a very weak defense again. Last year they averaged 17 points and they gave up 36. And again, just a very weak team. And keep in mind, when these teams play the out-of-conference games the first month is when you really pound them. They play anybody decent. The team has to win with the playoffs, the bowls, although the bowls are such a joke now with 5 wins you get in. It's absolutely retarded. But still, the teams are going to want to win, especially these bigger conference, the Pac-12s, the Big Tens, the SEC, where you can't really afford the loss. That's where you jump on them. And the last and the weakest team is North Texas. New quarterback, not very good. 3-7 return. Very weak and young offense. Very weak defense. They're going to try to run the Texas Tech offense, and they have a very weak offensive line. So that'll take a while for them to get the Texas Tech offense in. Last year they only scored 15 a game and gave up 41, so you can see why they're going to the Texas Tech offense. Give it a few weeks, but probably by the middle of the season, if they play a Texas San Antonio or Charlotte, you know, they might get a good. They might be able to score a lot on them because these teams are so weak defensively. So that's kind of like a sleeper, but later in the year, because once they get the Texas Tech offense going, provided the quarterback's any good, which I'm not sure he is. Okay, now we'll go to the Sun Belt, the real money conference. And let's start with Arkansas State. Very explosive team last year, probably the same. New quarterback, 6-8 returning, very young, good offense, very young offense, good quarterback, good running back. Strong secondary on defense. Probably an over. They averaged 40 and 30 last year. Now, how many people know that Arkansas State averaged 40 a game besides the TEASERKING? That's where you make your money. When Arkansas State plays Western Kentucky or Middle Tennessee. If Arkansas State played Middle Tennessee, the over-under 60, I'd lock the game. I probably did last year, but that's how you make your money. Arkansas State's the best team in that conference. So when they play the weaker teams, you bet Arkansas State they'll score a ton. Next team's Appalachian State, returning quarterback, 6-9 returning starters, strong running game. They averaged 36 offense and 19 defense. Not really sure on their defense. Couldn't really tell from the magazine. We'll keep an eye on it. Their first game they play somebody. They play Tennessee, so we'll see how good their defense is. But you know they scored 36, but they only allowed 19 a game. So you can see they've got a very good defense. This is one of the few cases where the Arkansas State offense will beat the App State defense. Usually not. Usually defense wins. But you got to have a good enough offense and a power run game, which they do. So I could see App State surprising people, although they're ranked number 2 here. Georgia Southern, great running team. Returning quarterback, 6-5 returning. They averaged 36 and 23 last year. Probably an over team. They got a new coach. Their coach moved on. That's how good a coach it was. Again, they're a very good running team. Probably an over because they score a lot. Their defense is okay. Next team's Georgia State. New quarterback. Don't know how good it'll be. 6-9 returning. Very strong passing game, so they went to a passing game. They averaged 27 and 28 last year, so it was a bit kind of a weaker defense. And I know they killed Georgia Southern last year, which really surprised me. So the passing obviously was working. So look at them to score points, probably score more than the 27 from last year, because I don't think they were very good early, and then they kind of figured it out and got going late. Troy used to be the cream of the crop here. They returned their quarterback. He's fairly good. 6-6 returning. Balanced offense, good passing. Average defense. Their numbers again were 27 and 28, just like Georgia State, but they're more of a balanced offense and somewhat of a passing offense. So again, Could be an over depending on who they play. Louisiana Lafayette, new quarterback, average. 7-7 returning, strong running back, good wide receivers. So if the quarterback's any good, they'll score a lot. Defense, I don't have a clue. They averaged 26 and 31 last year, so I guess the defense is not that strong. And they'll score 26, so they don't have a great offense. Pretty average. Probably, against some of these teams are probably a good dog. These middle of the pack teams are probably good dogs here. Georgia State, Troy, when they play the other conference teams. The only one you got to watch out for is Arkansas State, who can blow you away. So that's why you got to be careful. That's why you got to know who's the strongest and the weakest. Next team's Idaho. Returning quarterback, very good quarterback. Very strong passing, strong quarterback, strong offense. A weak defense. They average 30 and 42, so they can score, but they have no defense. Definitely an over team. So obviously, if Idaho plays Arkansas State and the over-under's in the 50s, low 60s, there's a lock for you right there. Arkansas will let you go, and they can play offense. They average 30. Southern Alabama's next. New quarterback, sophomore. Who knows? 5-5 back. They run a balanced offense, and they have a weak rush defense. You can run on them. So a team like Georgia Southern will have a field day with Idaho, or with South Alabama. They scored 25 and gave up 37. So again, they're a weak defensive team, but they're not that strong of an offensive team. So they're just a weak team. New Mexico State's next. New quarterback, but he's injured. So let's see when he comes back. Balanced offense. They have a really strong runner in Rose. So keep your eye on Rose to score a lot. They got 4 and 6 returning, a very weak defense. They're an over team. They scored 28 and give up 45. And they're running the ball with Rose, and they're giving up 45 points. So definitely an over team. They're the highest team here is a 73. 28 and 45. So they have a 73, and you got Idaho at 72, and you got Arkansas State at 70. So you can see that even though they don't score, they give up a ton. Texas State, returning quarterback, he's a very good one. The running back and the wide receivers are new. They have a very weak defense. 3 and 4 returning, so they're going to be very young, inexperienced. They scored 27 and gave up 39 a game last year. Another weak team. They'll give up a lot of points. And the last team, and number 125 out of 128, Louisiana Monroe. So you got to be careful. Louisiana Lafayette, Louisiana Monroe. Make sure you got the right Louisiana. They do have a good returning quarterback. 7 and 2 returning offense and defense. A balanced offense, a weak defense. They were 21 and 37 last year. So you got a lot of teams here giving up 31, 42, 37, 45, 39, and 37. So the last 6 teams I mentioned, Louisiana Lafayette, Idaho, South Alabama, New Mexico State, Texas State, Louisiana Monroe have terrible, terrible defenses. The best defensive team here is App State, and the best offensive team here is Arkansas State. So when you got Texas State playing South Alabama, you pretty much are betting the dog, and you're pretty much betting the game over that neither team's going to score a lot, but you bet it over. And that's what you're looking for. So it's really the first month of the year, right, when they've got the out-of-conference against the bigger conferences. You got South Alabama, New Mexico. Like, I know New Mexico plays New Mexico State. Probably a good over game. Texas State, Louisiana Monroe, when they play anybody decent in the Big Ten and the Pac-10 and whoever they, SEC, ACC, whatever they play, you just jump against them. You bet against them. That's why this is the money conference. You got somebody playing Texas State, you just bet a fortune on the other team. Whoever it is, they've got to win the game because they want to get their win. The team's terrible. Their defense is terrible. You know, maybe their quarterback's okay. Maybe they can score some points. But depending on who they're playing, it's either an over or you just bet the other team, depending on what the spread and the over-under is. And, I mean, that's all you do. So, basically, that's what you're looking at here. So, again, there's 2 different seasons. There's the first month when they're playing these out-of-conference games, and these teams are killing them. You get your you get your feel. Like Western Kentucky's got to play Alabama. Good luck. But then when they get in conference, that's why the stats are a little misleading because, you know, Western Kentucky's going to have Alabama thrown in their stats. And you're going to look at their average and go, wow, they don't score. But they do score. And when they're playing Old Dominion and UTEP and Rice, they're going to put up 50 points on them. So that's why it's hard to look at stats sometimes. It's much more meaningful to see who they played and how they played them. Now, if they get shut out by Alabama 40-0, you can't be surprised. I mean, I think Western Kentucky will score on them. Like last year, they put up 20. They lost 48-20 to LSU at LSU. Memphis beat Ole Miss. So when you have the good quarterback, you can pull the upsets or at least be competitive in the games. So that's what you're looking for here. And again, these averages are just, you know, I need to bone them into just conference. Like that's what I'm working on now is just the conference in college football. The Big Ten, because their stats get skewed either. When Baylor puts up a 60 on SMU, you can't count that number. So you got to look at Baylor, Oklahoma, Baylor, Texas, Baylor, TCU. So you got to throw out the Baylor SMU and the Baylor, Texas State games when you're looking at points and points allowed. So it's very misleading. But if you can get the games in the conference, this is more for the conference games and who to bet against when the bigger boys come a knocking and they're laying, somebody's laying 21 to Texas San Antonio. It shouldn't even be a thought. You're going to jump on that other team or whoever's playing South Alabama or Louisiana Monroe. They're laying 28, Iowa or whoever. And it's an automatic because the team has to beat them. Now with the playoff, you can't certainly lose to one of these teams, and then you got always every conference has 3 or 4 good teams, so you can't do that. But that's what you look at here. So very important to know these teams, which is why TEASERKING does this, because these are the most important teams in the whole thing to know. This and the MAC and a few other little conferences, the Mountain West. A lot of money to be made there. Bet against the weak teams. And when these teams have a good offense and a weak defense, I don't know who was that, like Idaho, strong offense, weak defense. That's a beautiful over team. In conference, out of conference, if they're playing, if Idaho's playing Washington State, I can't get enough money to bet the game over because that game will go to 90. That's exactly what you want. And the problem is, too, you got to figure, is the spread better or is the over-under better? So let's say Washington's playing Idaho and they're laying 35. Yeah, they're going to cut, but let's say the over-under is 65. It might be better to go over because they're going to score versus, well, Idaho can score, so Washington State could win by 28, and it's comfortable because Idaho could score late. But they're going to score, so that makes the over probably a better bet than the team laying the 30. And I'm really doing that. Last year I really pounded it hard. And this year in baseball, I'm really doing that. When I get the 4th and the 5th pitchers pitching against each other, it's an over. And these games go over all the time. And when I get the 2 aces going against each other, I don't know which way to go. Do you take Verlander or do you take, what's his name? You take Baumgartner. Let's say they're playing each other. I don't know who's going to win, Verlander or Baumgartner, but I guarantee you there's not going to be more than 2-3 runs scored in the game. So I'm going to go under and not worry about picking the winner. And that's a very good way to bet a lot of these littler football teams. They got terrible defenses. A couple of them have scoring. So the scoring games with the weak defense are just going to, they'll just put up numbers all over the place. Anyway, there's 2 others. I'm doing all the conferences, so please ask me any questions. www.teaserking.com. I wish you good luck. Please comments on any game. I can help you on the games, but I can't help you on my strong plays and locks. People buy those, and I can't, I won't have a business if you ask for my lock game. If I give you my lock games, I can't help you there. But I can help you on a lot of the games with my comments. I'll have a week 1 out probably in a week or 2 as soon as I get over-unders. So anyway, www.teaserking.com. You want to buy a package a week, a month, through the whole season, we can certainly fit within your budget. I have all sorts of different players. I have $1,000 bettors and I have $50 bettors, so I'm trying to cater to everybody. But the bottom line is I was over 80% of my locks last year, and that's why you pay me what you pay me, and I've been doing this since 1977. I've been handicapping, so I'm very successful at it. You can see the kind of breakout I give you. All right, everybody. Well, good luck. Have a nice day. Again, www.teaserking.com. Come on by.